Sorry, Natalie. Natalie, I think if you're ready, we could start. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Elsa Vikutsia, your host for the webinar. As the director of IABC Quills in Africa, I am so pleased to be guiding today's session, and I believe that it's going to deliver meaningful insights to all of us. Today is the second in our five-part series, The Road to Communication Excellence, and we are specifically focusing today on the Quill work sample. But before we proceed, just a few housekeeping notes. I would be so happy if you could please interact with us, use your emojis to show us what you like, what you don't like, and also please post your questions in the Q&A. We're going to have a robust session after both presentations, and all questions are welcome. When we do have the Q&A session, the whole panel will be online, and we'll take it from there. So the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available as a YouTube link. Our administrator, Natalie, will post it on LinkedIn, and please feel free to share. Natalie either has or will now post the how-to guidelines for all the Quill categories or all the Quill divisions in the chat today. And she's also going to post the evaluator's scoring sheet for all four divisions in the chat. So please download it. And remember to make use of the Quill coaching support. It's a free service, and we've got a whole lot of experts standing by to help you shape your entry. So I'm very happy to now introduce our panelists. So joining us today are Lisa Brandt of Zatari, Kevin Liebenberg, and Cam Naidu of Actuate. I would like to first introduce Lisa. Lisa is the discipline lead for organizational sustainability at Zatari. She's a gold quill winning strategist and evaluator, and her approach to the work sample is refreshingly clear. According to Lisa, your work sample is your chance to tell the real story of your work. And today, Lisa is going to show us how to bring that story to life in a way that the evaluators can follow and respect and score your work with confidence. And then Kevin, I'm so happy to welcome you. Kevin is a lifelong student of organizational change and transformation. He's a TEDx speaker, he's a strategist, and he's a storyteller. But he's also the CEO of Actuate, a company that's focused on making a change for human well-being. This year, Kevin and his team were one of only two African winners of the 2025 International Gold Quill Awards. Kevin, what a fantastic achievement. They received an award of excellence, a Gold Quill Award of Excellence for the Change Champions program at MTN South Africa. And they also received the Africa Best of the Best Award for that very same entry. And we're going to hear from Kevin and his creative associate, Cam, a little bit later on today, but theirs is a powerful example of what happens when communication enables people to lead change from the inside. So please join me in welcoming our panelists whose expertise and passion is going to move and inspire all of us today. So just again, on the housekeeping side, we're going to be focusing on the work sample, which is the actual proof of what you delivered in your work plan. But before we dive in, I just want to remind you of the bigger picture. When you enter a quill, you can choose from four divisions. Division one is communications management. That's everything internal. So there, if you can't find a category in division one, you can go trawling division two, three, and four. But division one literally has 28 categories, from HR to leadership to crisis comms and many more. Division 2 is to enter your communication research projects or programs. Division 3 focuses on training and education, and Division 4 is communication skills. So Division 1, 2, and 3 have very similar work plans, and the work sample approach is almost the same. So in your Division 4, your work plan is much shorter than in Division 1, 2, and 3. And your work sample is much bigger because there they want to see your skill, because Division 4 focuses on communication skills. So part 1 of any Quill entry focuses on your work plan, which is the strategic approach and the theory. You basically answered 6 to 7 questions. You can take up to 4 pages to answer those questions in Division 1, 2, and 3. However, in the Skills Division, it's much shorter. In the Skills Division, as Kevin's going to show us a little bit later today or allude to, your work plan is basically just there to set the scene and give context to your skill, which is your work sample. So in Division 1, 2, and 3, the scoring is evenly split 50-50 for your work plan and for your work sample. But in Division 4, communication skills, the emphasis is different. There, it's 65% of your total entry is scored towards your work sample. So today is about showing you how to make the second half or part 2 of your Quill entry really land. So let's kick off today's session. I'm going to immediately ask Lisa to join me online. Lisa, you are a storyteller of note.
Oh, Elsie, stop.
Welcome, and I'm so excited to share your Quill journey.
Thanks. Yeah, Elsie, like you said, we've been entering quills as and when we have an impactful project that actually is part of the criteria of the IABC. And we always love to enter and to actually be not only recognized by peers, but also to be able to actually stand back and look at the project that you've put together and really to make sure that, wow, this is truly a best practice piece of work that we've done. So it is kind of a checklist for yourself when you are able to put in an IABC entry, is that like the standard is where it should be. It kind of measures your own work against industry best practice. So it's always a nice pat on the back for yourself if you are able to put an IABC Quill award together.
But Lisa, just a question, and I was asked this actually by a young communicator who's just entered the profession recently, yesterday. She wanted to know, but why is best practice so important? And I tried to explain to her because of the results. So
Exactly.
what differentiates best practice against just any PR approach?
It truly is the value and the impact of the work that you're doing, Elsie. A lot of people do fall in the trap of spending a lot of money and they're not getting any returns for the money they spend on either employee engagement or culture work or comms work. And then you kind of devalue your comms function if you're not able to show the impact and the value of what your project or your work is bringing. So it definitely best practice, and especially the IABC's best practice that's set out for what needs to form part of a best practice project, actually does add a lot of credibility to your work. It adds a lot of result, like the return on investment is then really, really obvious for your audience internally, because I know we're still in a world where we fight for money and we fight for. We fight for, I hate saying for a seat at the table, but comms isn't obviously seen as an executive function in most parts of the business. So by working with best practice, you actually do show that it is an executive function, it is adding business value, and it is moving the needle on massive business risks where needed.
Brilliant. So tell us your story. Where would you start your portfolio of evidence?
Oh, okay. So I wonder.
And does it have to be such a painful journey? We discussed it just now. It can be if you don't do it properly.
No, not at all. So Natalie, I think I'm going to ask you, did you receive my presentation? Do you have it there? If you can maybe
Yes.
start it, otherwise, okay,
Yeah.
great. So if you can just maybe start it, and while we wait for the slides to go up, I think sometimes when we put our quills together, we're so focused on the work plan and making sure it's structured and it's aligned to the framework that's been put in front of us. But then usually we leave the work sample until last because we're like, oh, we'll get to it. It's fine. We have everything we need for the work sample. And then time catches up with you.
Yeah.
And then you kind of maybe put your work sample together in a bit of a rush, right? And you just throw a
Yes.
few things that look good together. But actually your portfolio of evidence or your work sample, it's actually what transforms your entry. So I want to show you why it's so part of a, why it's such a powerful piece of the entry. So I don't know, maybe Natalie, if you can just go into full slide mode, please. Thank you.
This is beautiful.
So yeah, Zutori just recently rebranded. We've zooshed up the brand quite a bit. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So basically my piece is where I just want to make sure that when you put your entry together, you are actually able to match the facts and the storytelling with each other to make sure that you really have something that your judges can experience with you, right? So Natalie, just on the next slide, please. So basically what I have on the slide here is there's definitely two sides to your entry. The one side is definitely demonstrating your strategy, your process that you followed, methodologies, what did you put out as your plan? It also shows the alignment, with the IABC 7-point work plan criteria. And it's very logical, it's very structured, and it's very fact-based because we're looking at money spent, KPIs reached, outputs, outcomes, it's very much black and white. When you get to your portfolio of evidence or your work sample, it actually then brings that entry to life. And it showcases the actual craft and creativity and execution of your plan. And it actually provides an emotional connection for the judges. So how I would think about my work sample is that the work plan is the head part of your project, and your portfolio is the heart of your project. And we often say that comms is it's a science and an art, right? So this is now us putting the science and the art together into a full rounded entry. Okay.
This is so clever. I like this a lot. And I can see Prester is also liking it. And I think Cam is also getting excited when he hears this bit.
Thanks. Natalie, if you can just move to the next slide. So what I've included in my slides is typical examples of what we've included in some of our previous work samples. But basically just why your portfolio matters so much is the fact that your judges they don't want to see what you did. They want to experience it as the audience experienced it, right? It provides, and your portfolio actually provides a lot of credibility because the outputs that you've mentioned in your work plan is now actually proven in your work sample. So it backs up your work plan. It's proving that whatever you've put in there actually did happen, and you're not lying about the amazing things that you've done. It also then helps judges to visualize the impact. So sometimes when you're not part of a project and you read there, we had a workshop with 50 people. If you're sitting there, you can't visualize what that looked like. You can't imagine the amount of logistics that actually went into it to get that amount of people in a room. But when you actually support it with something simple like one photograph, immediately the judges are like, oh, wow, 50 people is actually, it's a significant amount of people. Look at how many people are in the room, right? So it just creates that context for the judges. And especially if we're thinking about, if you're thinking about resubmitting your silver quill as a gold quill, even much more you need to create that context, because even the Africa versus US context mix also doesn't always work out. So it's always important to then put in the images and some proof points to just visualize the impact of what you've done.
And if I can jump in here, visualize and contextualize. That's quite interesting. I can't forgot about that. That's a very interesting angle. And I think just now when we hear from Kevin and the team, they actually took an Africa entry and they won a gold quill. So,
Yes,
and I'm sure the evaluators must have been from North America or somewhere there,
yes,
and they just
yes.
don't have context on Africa. Yeah, very, very clever, very important point you make there.
Exactly. And then the other one is that you want your judges actually to emotionally resonate with what you've done, right? They want to feel what the audience felt. They want to see what the audience received, right? And then it actually does differentiate your entry to be too technical. So, for example,
Yes.
what I have on the page is we usually like to make use of mock-ups because sometimes a campaign has quite a bit of elements, right?
Okay.
And you don't always want to put in the 10 posters that you've done or the 20 pieces of social media that
Yes.
you've created. So we do like to actually group some of the things together. Like the middle page, you'll see we rather just have one image in there of the 4 different posters that we've run, that you can see the message cadence, you can see the scheduling of how the messages are actually, that was for a very intense change management process. So it kind of links up with the phases in the project that's in your work plan, right? So we kind of build then that entire story with one single
Yeah.
image. The one
But
on yeah.
sorry, I'm also seeing here, looking at the image in the center, there's a very strong alignment in terms of look and feel. And in your evaluation, you actually get evaluated on whether the look and feel is professional. Also, they link it back, the evaluators link it back to your budget to say,
Yes.
with the budget that you had, is this really good enough?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And then for the one on the left, we opted to include a screenshot of a mock-up because the questions were call it now more confidential that we asked through this employee survey, right?
Okay.
Our client didn't want us to show it, that everyone can see what we asked their employees. So we rather include a smaller mock-up to still give the judges a view of what we've done without
Okay.
sharing really anything, because we included it very small in a bigger slide. So even if you zoom in, you're not able to see what the questions were, but the judges still gets a sense of, oh, I see. There were
Yes.
questionnaires, they were branded, you'd still get a feel for it. So that's
So,
just some of the examples of how we included in our work samples.
Lisa, sorry, this brings me to a very important issue. Also, a comment we had recently is I can't enter my quill because the work is confidential. But IABC does, as you now clearly explained, if the work that you're entering is confidential and not to be shared, then
Yeah,
you simply have to log that on your entry and it will be respected. Nobody
exactly.
else other than your evaluator, who's bound by a confidentiality clause in any case, will have access. And also your IP will be protected. And that's a very important fact to
Yeah,
take note of. Yes.
exactly. And I think it's sometimes we might be a bit nervous for no reason in sharing these things, because even if you're doing a campaign, right, it's already out there. You
Yes,
can,
yes.
everybody from outside can go and pick up what you've done. So
Mhm.
so but in this case specifically, we were asked not to share and divulge the details of the survey, but we still opted to include the survey, but in a different format that still protects the
Yes,
IP, like you said, out to be. Okay.
yes.
Natalie, just next slide, please. Then I think what's really important about how you choose what you include in your work sample, right? That's usually a big, how does it work? We've got so many things. How do you prioritize? Because obviously your judges can't run through 20 attachments, right? We
Yes,
like to keep it linked to our outputs or our outcomes. So if we've got
yes,
very strong outputs creatively, and it's in the work plan, we like to then say, for this output, here is the proof. For this outcome, here
yes,
is the proof. So we
yes,
usually end up with like five pieces of work for our work sample, and it is labeled in the same name as the outputs or the outcomes in your plan.
Work plan.
When the judge actually reach through your outputs, they can actually go look, oh, okay, this is output one's work sample. Okay, great. I see. Great. I understand what you mean. So I think it is definitely important to align your work sample with the key results that you are including in
Yes.
your work plan.
Yes.
So that, because otherwise you just end up adding a lot of noise to your work sample, and the judges aren't able to make the connections themselves if there's too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things that we usually so we like to focus on how it looked, it felt, and it landed with our audience.
Brilliant.
That's
Yes.
what we include in our work sample. Then we also like, in the order of our work sample, how we put it together is literally from the beginning of the project to the end of the project. So we kind of build and support that storyline, because if you think of your Quill work plan, you also start at the beginning. It goes to what you've done, what risks did you, and then what results did you achieve, right? So we like to kind of number our work sample in that same cadence, that as the judges go through it, it kind of builds on your story up until the end. So that's also a nice way for us to know what are we including and what are we not including. And then, like I said, we actually do use quite a bit of screenshots and screen snips and quotes and videos and photos. It's not just PDFs that we include in our work samples. So you'll see, for example, on the right-hand side, the top photos when we launched our change management campaign. And what we then did is we actually, for our work sample, we put together a PowerPoint, which we turned into a PDF. And the PowerPoint was all the images that we took from the beginning to the end of the project, right? So we added a PDF of photos, and each photo is labeled to actually take the judges on that journey. But obviously the photos are linked to the outputs that we've mentioned in the work plan. So it kind of creates that feel that this actually happened. This was real, right? It's on the mine environment. You can actually see where we are at, and it creates that context again. So at the bottom, you'll see that's actually just a screenshot that we included from another project. That was the social media pieces that we've done. And then, like I said, we like to add the short captions to actually just guide the judges, because it's so easy for you who know this project in and out to you're referring to, but the judge reading your items is like, I don't know where does this fit in? What does this relate to? And then the last one is really just avoid overload. Like, focus on the quality of what you're putting in your work sample, not the quantity. The quantity does not impress anyone. It actually does diminish a little bit the judge's view of it, because it's not focused, it's not direct, and it's not directly linked to your work plan. They can't link it back. So those are some of the tips that I would give you if you want to build a narrative with your work sample. I don't know if you want to add anything to this one, Elsabe.
I just think this is so interesting, and it takes me on a journey. And I know it's a cliche, but a picture tells 1,000 words.
It does. So that actually is a reminder for yourself to take more pics during your project execution.
Yes, but also, Lisa, some people make the mistake of trying to add everything or represent everything that's in the work plan. And you actually get scored down if you duplicate your work plan 100%, because you're not supposed to be duplicating. You're supposed to be providing evidence of this is what we did, this is how we did it. And then you find people adding copious amounts of work to try and prove everything, and it's unnecessary.
So unnecessary. That's why I say we like to limit it to 5 very strong proof pieces. To help tell the story.
Then, and this seems so obvious to me, but then it shouldn't take you days to put together your work plan, especially if after your project you do a project review, the highlights, the lowlights, check, did we land?
Yeah, but also I think what's difficult for me usually when I put the work sample together is the fact that you have so much to show. And the fact that you have so many proof points of how well you did this project, and you're so proud of every piece. How do you choose what to include? That is what takes time for me, is actually deciding what is the key elements that supports our work plan. Because I mean, if you have a project of 12 months, you have gigas and gigas and gigabytes.
No, I hear you. No, I hear you. So I think from my experience, I think as your project moves along, keep your admin up to date, keep your
Exactly.
photographic and video archive up to date, do your sorting, get rid of what
Yeah.
doesn't serve you, and it makes it easier. But
So
I
after
feel your
what we've
pain.
actually done, what we've actually started incorporating in our projects is our reporting to our clients actually follows quite a bit the Quill
Brilliant.
award process. So sometimes
Yes,
we even just pull up the report client the client reports and just pull what we need.
brilliant.
So
That's
that usually
fantastic.
helps as well. Yeah. Okay, Natalie, next slide, please. So there's just a few more slides of examples, but like for example, the two pictures that I have on the slide here, it was manuals and books that we've put together, and we opted to just include spreads of the reports. We didn't include the entire report, so we would rather include images of the spreads and how we've used, visuals, and we choose obviously very strategically the spreads that we want to include, because then let's say we've got 4 or 5 massive reports that came out of this project. You can't attach all 5 amazing reports,
No.
right? So we opt for screenshots of the spreads of the reports, which also kind of helps you to be really targeted about what you show the judges. And then I think just the last bit is that you should always remember that your work plan tells the story of effectiveness, and
Yes.
your portfolio of evidence tells the story of the experience. And
Yes.
together, the facts and the feelings is actually what creates the compelling entry. So Natalie, if you just go to the next slide, just some more examples of how we include. So that, for example, is again how we rather opted for mock-ups in our work sample, because it was confidential work that we have done for City of Cape Town. The manual obviously has a lot of technical information in there that's not readily shared, but we still wanted to show how we took a very technical manual and made it a bit more user-friendly, right? So that was kind of the purpose of our entry. So we opted for the mock-ups that still protects the IP, but still shows the judges what we're doing. On the right hand side, we also include then screenshots of because we utilized an email and a WhatsApp based communication channel. So we literally just took screenshots of the emails we sent, how we structured the WhatsApp messages, to also just create that emotive experience, right, of what the audience experienced. And then just the next one, Natalie, please. This one was kind of the same, where we had very detailed manuals that we did for a mine, for the mining intelligence system. Again, very confidential, but by adding the mock-ups in this way, nobody can boot, right? So it kind of helped us quite a bit. And then we also make use of, if we have a very complex project and there was a lot of phases to it and a lot of considerations and risks to it, we like to actually opt for a quick video of our project. So we put a video together from start to finish, explaining the approach, the risks we had to mitigate, and that actually forms part of our reporting back to our client even, right? So
Yes.
we did the video for the IABC, but it actually added value to our client because we submitted it to them as saying, this is an overview of our project. This is an overview of the results. There you go. And then it's somewhat doubled up in effort that we can actually create a nice client experience for our client as well. And I think there's just one more slide, Natalie, if you can go to the next one. So basically, I'm just leaving you all with the thought that you shouldn't just prove that you've done the work. You should actually make the judges care about what you've done. And that is what I'm gonna end off my session with.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I saw the black rock and I was wondering, is that part of the approach to the gold quills? Hopefully it is, but that's another discussion for another day. Thank you very much, Lisa. We're going to hold questions until after Kevin, but Lisa, that was very, very interesting. And I love the work you're doing. It's very considered. So for me, it's interesting that you do a lot of screenshots. I usually pull the picture in and yeah, you've given me a little bit of a food for thought there, and it's clearly an easier way and perhaps also a better way to display it. So
So I
thank
think
you very
sometimes
much for that.
sometimes we wanted to show the true authenticity of what we've done, right? A WhatsApp message just is a WhatsApp message. So just screenshot it in WhatsApp and show people what it looked like. So we always try to keep true to what it was in real life and what the real impact and just keep our entry as authentic as possible.
That's brilliant because I think it gives instant credibility. And because you can clearly see that's what happened. Yeah, I love it. And now I'm excited. It's almost like time is flying by. Kevin, Cam, very welcome. I can't wait to see what you're going to share with us today. Kevin, firstly, congratulations again on your gold quill. Um, I just think it's phenomenal. And something like that just doesn't come by itself and it doesn't happen by itself. So I'm very happy to have Cam with you today. And over to you, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks, Elsami, and good morning to everybody. So we're at an unfair advantage because we have Cam Naidu on our side. And Cam, as you can see, has got grey hair. So he's been around for a while. And he is an award-winning advertising designer by training and has worked with some of the big advertising shops across the country and worked on some of the biggest brands in the world. And so we've got a secret weapon in that we have that skill set on our team, which is great. And in fact, that's a big part of what we do at Actuate, which is sort of apply creativity to change and transformation processes. So we've got our work sample, which we'll briefly take you through. We won't show you everything. But perhaps before we start that, I would like to just give you perhaps a little bit of an inside track as an evaluator. So I've evaluated 2 rounds of quills, both silver and gold quills. And Elsabe and Natalie, please jump in here as well if you have anything to add. But there are a lot of entries, and there's a lot of stuff that is attached to these entries. And as an evaluator, it actually gets quite taxing. I remember spending like very late nights going through all of this information. And I was reminded at a very good gold quills or silver quills entry webinar that when you get to sort of gold quill level, as Elsie mentioned, you may have a judge who's sitting in Russia or Estonia or, perhaps not be completely fluent in English as a first language, and therefore will certainly not understand the environment if you just say MTN is the biggest mobile company in South Africa, whatever the case may be. You've got to create a fair amount of context. But going back to the work sample, what I started doing as an evaluator is before I looked at a work plan, I would flip through very quickly the work sample. So I got a little bit of a flavor, and I loved what Lisa said, is the work sample gives you the experience. What did the audience experience, which is ultimately, I think, what calls are about. They're showing impact on an audience. And hopefully that impact is a strategic outcome and not just sort of tactical or creative outputs. Before I show what we've got to show, Cam, can I ask you to come in and just talk a little bit about the actual process of putting it together? And while you're doing that, I'll start sort of sharing screen. But just in terms of what you do, where you find stuff, how you start to put it together, and I'll then start sharing screen.
Sure. I think Lisa mentioned quite a few important facts. And one of the important things is to keep a folder at the beginning of the project and record everything. Sometimes even arbitrary meetings and arbitrary connections in a boardroom discussing some important things with a client. All of those things become important because this becomes part of the portfolio of evidence. So recording everything is super important. Emails, quotes from people within the organization that have been impacted by the work that you're doing in the organization. I remember a quote from a young lady. We did some work for Nedbank many years ago, and she was called and encouraged on a phone call, and she was given a little gift in an appreciative inquiry project that we prototyped for Nedbank. And it made such a huge impact in her world. And it still stays with me today. So if I'm evaluating a project or evaluating a work sample, and in there are these real human stories, it really connects with me, because I am being put in, I'm taken and from where I am evaluating this work, and I'm taken into the world of the project, and I'm meeting people that I don't know through the work sample. I'm seeing how the work impacted their world. So it becomes very authentic, it becomes very real. And it has to be more than just facts, figures, stats, numbers. It has to really tell the story you want to tell. And what story do you really want to tell in your work sample? What is the story you really want to take the evaluators through? If it's just filled with stats and information, you miss the real human connection that you need to have in the project, because a lot of the work that we do is human-based. It's dealing with humans in their work situation. It's employee engagement. It's culture work, and very often it's people working in a culture that might not be conducive, where there's massive changes happening. They have change fatigue. So the work that we do is to make their lives better. And those stories, there are real human nuances, real human nuggets, stories that need to come into the work sample, the real impact that the work had on the people. And the figures and the facts then substantiate that to show that this was a real project and these are the results we had. So it's both head and heart, as Lisa said. So for me, recording everything is very important, because then you go through this folder later on and you find the most compelling evidence of what happened, how it impacted the people, what they felt like when the project was when the project was done within an organization, and also how do you differentiate your work? Are you telling the right story, and how do you differentiate your work from other work that's going to be evaluated within the Quills? And you bring your flavor into it. If your work the work that you do has a very specific kind of flavor, the kind of people that you work with, the project that you do, the creative work that you put together, you put your heart and your soul into it. And to leave that out of the work sample is doing disservice to the work. You put yourself into the shoes of the evaluator, and you add those the fact that you worked 14, 16 hours on that project for 6 months, you bring that in some way, because that's part of the human story. That's part of the things that you did. And context of the client environment is super important as well. You have to put the judges in that environment. You have to allow them to kind of open a door, step into that environment through the work sample, through the work that they are evaluating, and experience what the people experienced. And then they will see the effectiveness of the work and how it impacted on the lives of the people on the other side and the kind of impact that they made.
Great. So I just want to check. I'm worried, has my screen unshared?
Yes.
Or you didn't see the imagery while Cam was talking?
No.
Okay, right. Let me do that again with a little more feeling. Were you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So in no particular order, I'm just going to flip through some of what was developed. This happened to be a change agent program, and we created a whole lot of tools and processes for them to be enabled to go out and evangelize this particular change in the team. We did then include in the work sample some video. Let's just see. That's actually taking us to YouTube. So are you able to see that? Cam, can you see the YouTube?
Yes, I can see the screen.
It hasn't gone to
Right.
YouTube.
It hasn't gone to YouTube.
Yeah.
Let me,
So maybe just stop share and then share again to the YouTube.
And I
That's
could
fine.
hear the sound. I didn't see it, but I'm excited to see it, Kevin.
I'll just, can you see the work sample again?
Yes.
Yes.
Go back to that, right? So I guess a point for me is if a picture tells 1,000 words, a video tells 1,000,000. And we had some nice stuff that really just showed the experience to Cam's point. So as you can see, we put a lot of stuff into this work sample. It was for communication skills. This was particularly around change communication. We did put in the research as well up front so that we also showed. So let's take it from the top. Is obviously nicely branded with good corporate CI, respecting our clients' sort of corporate identity. Starting with a human story, to Cam's point, this was a particular person who started off in the program and really actually grew as a human over a year-long period, being part of this process. Here's where we also put in some videos. I think I'm going to struggle now just to share across different platforms, so forgive me. But these are little vignettes of people telling their story of what it meant to them as a person. Then we went into the business need, and then how did it work? And it worked particularly well. You can see that there's some quite specific business results. And then how did we go about doing it? So I could sit here all day and talk you through it. But perhaps let me pause there and see if there are any questions or comments that you'd like to ask, and then we can always go back to that if there are specific things people would like to see.
Yes, Kevin Elsaby here. I have a question. How long did you work on this project? And you entered this as a communication skill. Congratulations. It's truly magnificent. When I saw it the first time, I was totally blown away. To me, this work speaks of global best of the best, something that I've only been honored with once in my life. And but this is exceptional. So you didn't enter it in the communication management, you entered it in skills. How long did you work on this project? And is there a phase 2 that you're looking at?
We worked on this project for, I suppose it was just over a year. This was
Wow.
part of the bigger program that we were supporting in TNSA on. So there was a bigger transformation in a particular area, and we were supporting the overall transformation program, and this just happened to be one of the sort of subsets of that bigger. So we actually, interestingly, part of, as you would have seen, the look and feel, the metaphor for this change was that the team was a hip hop group, and
Stunning, yes.
they were playing really badly to 12 drunkards at the Radium, and they wanted to play FNB Stadium to 1,000,000 raving fans. And the whole campaign was essentially what is it going to take for us to shift from where we are to where we want to be, which is fairly mediocre to absolutely world class. And the beauty of the musical metaphor in a context where there's lots of call center people and our environment in South Africa where there is a great love for music really worked well. So yeah, that was, I guess, the sort of backstory. So
Fantastic.
I'm going to say we also won a silver quill for a video that we did, which was also part of this campaign. So what we found more ROI on as a tip is to take parts of a campaign and into those in particular focused categories versus trying to put it all into one overall big category 1 entry.
Yeah, that's brilliant. However, then your work must have depth. Then you must have walked the 100 miles because slicing and dicing is, I believe, only possible if you truly put in the hours, which is phenomenal because, I mean, that's why you've got a gold quill, one of 2 in Africa this year. Brilliant.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's very kind. But yeah, mostly my team, I have to be honest. And they put in the hard yards on this job. Also, I must say, Our purpose is do epic shit with cool people who care. Excuse the swearing. And we had a great collaboration here. We had a very good partner who we partnered with in terms of Game On Performance Solutions, who did a whole leadership development process in parallel with us, and then with the client themselves. So both the leader of the effort here, which was Cornelia van Heerden, who's the Chief Customer Officer of MTN South Africa, her team and her communication team. So we made a point of entering as a combined client and two different partner combined team. And I'm really glad we did that. We did the hard yards of putting the entry together, but we've got so much goodwill from both our partner as well as from the client that it was well worth the effort we put into putting it together. And also, I think success shared is always much more enjoyable and much more scalable. So happy to take any other questions or comments.
I think I'm going to open the floor. So are you ready for us to open the floor for questions?
Yeah.
Right. We had an email from, let me just have a look. Students at Daystar University in Kenya who couldn't attend live but are following the Silver Quill coaching program closely. They've asked us to pose the following to the panel. From Wanjiru Mutoni, she said, we're still learning how to connect strategy and creativity. How do you make sure that your work sample doesn't just look good, but actually proves your thinking? So I'm thinking maybe, Cam, this is a question for you to field.
I think it's very, very important to make sure that the work sample translates the strategy, the process, the methodologies used. Because sometimes the work just looks pretty and it lacks depth because the actual methodology, the process, all of the important things were not brought in.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So in your work plan, you would have clearly detailed how you're actually going to approach this creatively and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then in the work sample, you actually put that to work for you, whether it's a video or whatever you decide the tool is that you're going to use to reach your audience.
Yes, someone mentioned it earlier on. Both must marry.
Yes.
Because one speaks to the strategy, the intention of what was done or what was done, and the work sample shows the evidence that the channels used to then take that intention and to create this output. The work plan may speak to the intended outcomes. While the work plan, while the evidence will, the portfolio of evidence will actually show you what the outputs were to bring about these outcomes.
Exactly what you did, yes. Thank you, Cam, for that. Then we had 3 questions from this particular institution. The other one was from Brian Omer, and I think I'm going to ask this to Lisa. Lisa, have you ever submitted something that didn't win? And what did you learn from that experience? If so, and what would you do differently now? That's a question I can answer. But Lisa, share with us.
So this is a tough one to answer because I haven't ever submitted something and didn't win something. So, but I think, so I think what I learned from this actual process all the time is where that best practice comes back in, Elspie, is that if you follow best practice from the beginning, you are guaranteed a win. And that is from outside of the Quill process, from project inception up until project execution. If you follow the Quill's process and you have to report on what the Quill wants you to report on, and you build your project in that way, you know it's going to reach goals. You know it's going to create value. You know it's going to have an impact. So for me, that's why the best practice is so important, that if you bring it into your daily work, every entry will be a winning entry because you followed best practice. So that for me is kind of the only advice I can give you. And it sounds horrible, and I'm so sorry. I'm not like hate being
That's brilliant.
but I mean, it's just that's why we're also very specific about the type of projects that we do enter for Quills. Not all of our clients and all of the projects allow us the space to work in a best practice manner, right?
Yes.
Some of the projects are quick and dirty, and we're not loving those type of projects, but they do fill up quite a bit of our time, and the client does dictate to us what they want and what they need.
Yes.
But where we have control and where we can decide what the budget is and where we can decide what the strategy and approach is, we follow best practice. And that's why we see results, and that's why we see impact. And that is what enables us to actually do a strong entry.
So maybe I should share my failure. I entered my very first Quill I had no idea what best practice looks like. I saw a video that the IABC, and there are still videos on the IABC website, and I watched the video. I just could not connect the dots in my mind. And my work sample was like 100-page Bible in Microsoft Word. I had no idea because nobody was willing to share what a work sample actually looks like. And it is a foreign concept for a young communicator. Well, I wasn't that young at the time. It's barely 15 years ago, but it was hard. And the people who I'd spoken to had given me advice, but nothing enough for me to constructively connect the dots. So the fact that today we have master communicators like yourself willing to share is phenomenal. And that is something that I'm really hoping in the 2 years that I'm going to be driving Quills in Africa is that I will feel that I've spent my time well if I can demystify best practice and the quills. So hats off to all three of you. Um, you are phenomenal at what you do, and as an experienced communicator now who didn't have the benefit of a Lisa and a Cam and a Kevin at the time when I started out, I must just say that it makes a massive difference. And Kevin sharing the MTN work, it is brilliant. It's I can't understand. This to me is like best of the best if I look at it, and it's truly up there. So I think it's critical for young communicators to grab the experience while you can. And also the IABC has a phenomenal coaching process. So there is no reason for anybody to struggle with a quill because there are just so many masters out there who are willing to give back to our profession. But Kevin, we have another question, the last one from the university. It comes from Fatuma Abdullali. What is the one thing you know about building a quill entry that you wish somebody had told you earlier in your career? So maybe, Kevin, that's one for you.
Sure. Start building the entry as you start doing the work. Because going back and digging out all sorts of data and process and stuff a year later is actually extremely hard. So I think we've spoken earlier before we even came on about the fact that even when we look at writing proposals, it can actually be a very good format to use the or strategies, for a client. We propose the following methodology or strategy, just using some of that really great practice, because I mean that entry has been built on the backs of thousands of experts across the world who know that if you follow this recipe, good things happen. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is be prepared to enter and actually just go through the process. Because I laughed when Lisa said she's never entered and not won. I'm sure you were the minority there. We entered many, 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 and we didn't win, and we got very frustrated. But what was super useful, and now as an evaluator myself, and you would know, Elsabe, is the evaluators are urged and trained to give very good, kind feedback.
Yes.
So we never go, this is terrible, or this was a very poor expression of XYZ. You actually, that's why it takes so long to evaluate. Because every entry you give very generous feedback back to the participant. So even if you don't win, you are winning, because you're actually getting extremely valuable global expertise of people who are volunteering their time for the sake of the sort of field of strategic communication.
Yes.
And that is invaluable. So yeah,
100%.
learn best by doing. So take a crack. And yeah, I would say don't expect to win on your first go, but if you like Lisa and you do that, then you'll obviously feel good at what to do.
Brilliant. Kevin, I so agree with you. Also, what I'm thinking is, if you struggle with your quills, there's a whole coaching team in the IABC, in the quill division, standing by to support you. You don't have to go at this alone. You don't believe me, I've been there, and Kevin, you've just attested to that. You've entered and you get nowhere. The entry can be arduous if you don't know where to start. But I think, taking from what you've just said, we do it in our agency as well. Every single proposal, we take the IABC Quill Entry work plan and we write our proposal accordingly. And we take the message map, and in advance, we decide what our proof points are going to be. We go back to the client strategy and we decide on the proof points. So it makes it so much easier, but don't struggle alone. It's not necessary. Talk to us. Let's share. We can assist you along the way. Also, something about the silver quills, which is brilliant as a starter or intro to the gold quills, is we are much more lenient. For us, silver quills is regarded as part of the learning, part of the prepping, and part of the coaching for the global stage. And I was so happy last year to see, Kevin, that you did the silver quills. You won your best of the best for your video, and then you went on to gold, and you won gold, and you also won excellence. So there are two types of awards. There's a merit and there's an excellence. And yeah, it's phenomenal. So I want to just uh, pick up on the chat. Charmaine Ocho said, thank you to all the presenters. Valuable tips and great explanations. I think I'm now motivated enough to enter this year. And then a shout out to Lisa Brand. It was so nice to see you again. I really miss working with you. You are such an inspiration. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much, Charmaine. I think let's put on our cameras. We have a few more minutes and ask. I see we have the chairperson of the IABC Africa in the room, Yemi. Hi, Yemi. It's wonderful having you with us. And then we have Verstar with us as well today. Yes, guys, the floor is open.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm not
Yes,
sure who
please
would
do.
like to answer that. If you have a strategy, well, from our side, it's going to be like operational excellence, and your plan won't be completed by the time you've got to enter your IABC Quill, do you then just report on the work done to date, or do you have to hold over until the next Quill? How would that work?
You would report for the period in which you've completed, for the work that you've completed, but it's important in your entry to state up front. This is part of a longer term strategy. I am now in month 8 of 36 or whatever. I actually entered a quill last year, and I got an excellence for it, and it's very fresh, very young. It's a change program for a national retail and agricultural company, and I was also concerned about that. So I made sure to give proper context, but also it's critical at that very early stage for you to list the outcomes that you've achieved. And if you can at all, try and have at least one very strong outcome that you've achieved. Change in
Okay.
behavior and supporting the business strategy. But there's nothing against entering it early if that's all you have.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great. Thank you. That answers it.
And then I see, okay, Yemi was in the house. I'm not sure if Yemi's with us anymore.
Hi, Elsabe, I'm
Hello, Yemi.
here. Good to
Yes,
see
hello,
everyone on the
Yemi.
call.
Brilliant. And Yemi, I'm very, very happy to welcome you today. Are we seeing quills from Africa this year, from your neck of the woods?
Yes, yes, indeed. There is an ongoing campaign to get people to, submit. I know quite a number of people have committed to that. And even the board members are looking at, the body of work they've done. And we will be seeing entries from Africa and from West Africa, East Africa. Yes,
Yeah,
both for the
that's
quiz
brilliant.
here and of course, yeah,
For the gold quills as well. Yes.
indeed,
And
that's the plan.
Yemi, what is your takeaway, your take home from today's webinar?
Okay, thanks. I think the biggest one for me is the bit around ensuring that, number one, you enter in the right category. And then secondly, the packaging of your work. Because I think one of the things that we don't show enough proof of is the evidence to demonstrate, how will I call it, the objectives were being, you've met them, the assessment and everything, the impact that work has done, because those are the things that are being evaluated. So very useful conversation, and I do thank the panelists and yourself.
It's such a pleasure. Are there any further questions before we wrap this up? Let me have a quick look at the chat. Okay, we seem to have hit all the questions. So lastly, but not the least, I would like to thank Natalie, our wing woman who is always putting these webinars together for us. You do a phenomenal job, Natalie. Thank you for your service. And also Abby, who is still learning and assisting. Natalie, thank you very, very much. I hope the insights that was shared today by this brilliant panel of master communicators, I hope to see that it's going to positively influence our team. Verstar, looking forward to your quill, and I'm really hoping to see more engagement between IABC and the different organizations represented today and attending today. And if anyone has any more questions, please contact info@IABC. Your quill entries can also go via info@IABC. And then lastly, please look out for the How to Video series on YouTube. Natalie will publish the link on LinkedIn. So thank you very much to our esteemed panel. Very excited to see your next quills. So goodbye and thank you once again for your support. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your
Bye.
time. Bye-bye.